While legally Weird Al doesn't need permission from the artist he parodies, he's always made it a point out of respect to ask the artist permission anyways. While most of the artists were cool with the idea of being parodied by him, there were some who said no to Weird Al. That's what we're going to explore in today's video. Beck's 90s hit Loser is a constant presence on rock radio, at least where I live, and when Weird Al wanted to parody the song, with his title being Schmoozer, Beck said no. Beck at the time was dealing with some critics who weren't taking his music seriously and thought if Weird Al spoofed his music, it would only give more credence to his detractors telling Billboard. I had a lot of people who were veterans in the business telling me at 20, 21, 22, you should go back to school, you don't really have the talent to do this. The songs as they were aren't going to work. They're too rough, they're too raw, they're not real songs. These are kind of like sort of hodgepodge ideas. Loser wasn't really taken seriously at all, and when it came out and it was popular, it still wasn't taken serious at all, he would say. But Beck would reveal years later he regretted turning down the opportunity, saying, "I regret denying him permission to do it. I think it would have been an amazing video. I'm actually really sad it didn't happen." This is my favorite story, just because it involves another hilarious Prince tale. This one should come as no surprise considering Prince was super protective of his work. Weird Al would tell Billboard in 2016, "I had a parody of Let's Go Crazy, that was about the Beverly Hillbillies, and I wanted to do something funny with When Doves Cry and Kiss. For 1999, I wanted to do an infomercial where you could get anything you wanted by dialing 1-800-something in 1999. I hadn't approached him in about 20 years because he always said no, but I had this fantasy that he'd come out with a new song, I'd have a great idea, he'd finally say yes, and it would erase decades of weirdness between us. But that's obviously not going to be the case," he would say. Weird Al would appear on the Howard Stern show and reveal how one year he sat in the same row as Prince at an award show and received a pretty bizarre telegram from Prince's people, as he stated here.
What a genius musically, but at the same point, you read about some of the, for lack of a better term, dicky moves that he made, like, you know, and you were kind of the victim of that. You were seated next to him at the American Music Awards.
Well, not right next to him.
But in the same row.
Yes, yeah.
And you were told, do not look Prince in the eyes.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
I got a telegram from his office. And
from his office?
Yeah. I have to say, it wasn't a personal thing, I don't think, because I was talking to some of the guys from Night Ranger, and they said, "Yeah, we got the same telegram. Don't look at Prince."
But can you imagine?
But they had to go to the trouble of finding out who would be near him.
Yes, yes.
And then telegramming all of them.
Do not establish eye contact.
But aren't you freaked out by that? Isn't the business really fun? You get to see some really funny things, don't you? I mean, what is that behavior? I mean,
I don't. Well, that same year, I think it was the same year. Do you remember Prince used to bring his bodyguard with him everywhere? Chick, was that the guy's name?
Yeah.
The big hulking guy.
Yeah.
Bring him on stage like he'd win an award, and the bodyguard would come on stage like Kenny Rogers was gonna, you know, punch him in the face or something.
Yeah, like where you're gonna get beat up at the award show. Maybe it was all sort of maybe it was just pure genius.
According to LA Weekly, Paul McCartney would end up meeting Weird Al and told him he was a fan of his work. In fact, McCartney told the musician that he could parody any of his songs, and when Weird Al wanted to do a parody of the Paul McCartney and Wings track, Live and Let Die, called Chicken Pot Pie, Weird Al went as far as meeting with the members of the orchestra who played on the original track, but McCartney said no, with Weird Al telling an interviewer, "Paul didn't want me to do it because he's a strict vegetarian, and he didn't want a parody that condoned the consumption of animal flesh. He said, you can do something else like tofu pot pie. I said, no, the chorus of my song will be bok bok bok, and tofu doesn't make any noise. It's not going to work." Coincidentally enough, it's been reported that Weird Al is a vegetarian. This one is a bit different. While Michael Jackson was cool with Weird Al parodying Beat It and Bad, he said no to having his 1991 single Black and White from his album Dangerous be made fun of. Weird Al would tell Rolling Stone, Michael wasn't quite so into it because he thought Black or White was more of a message song and he didn't feel as comfortable with a parody of that one, which I completely understood. Weird Al's parody was going to be called Snack All Night, and he has performed it live from time to time. It was in 1996 that the band gave Weird Al their blessing to do a spoof of their 1994 single Buddy Holly as part of a polka medley titled The Alternative Polka. But frontman Rivers Cuomo changed his mind with Weird Al revealing on his website. In fact, it was completely recorded and we were about to do the final mix when we got a call from Weezer's management. Apparently the song's writer, Rivers Cuomo, decided for whatever reason he didn't want his song in my medley after all. So at the very last minute, after the special thanks had already been printed on the CD and the cassette booklets, we had to physically cut the song out of the medley. I'm still kind of bummed about it. It sounded really cool. Fans would get to hear an unmixed and unfinished 23 seconds of the sample online though. One-hit wonder Daniel Powter would have a big hit in 2006 with the song Bad Day. Weird Al wanted to do a parody called You Had a Bad Date, but Powter said no initially. Weird Al would tell the Toronto Sun, and then literally the day before we went into the studio to record White and Nerdy, we got a call saying he changed his mind, and he wanted to do it after all, and I had to inform them that the train had left the station. Rapper Coolio, who was best known for his song Gangster's Paradise, was not happy that Weird Al parodied his song. Weird Al, according to Mental Floss, was quoted as saying, "Two separate people from my label told me they had personally talked to Coolio, and that he told them he was okay with the whole parody idea. Halfway into production, my record label told me that Coolio's management had a problem with the parody, even though Coolio personally was okay with it. My label told me they would iron things out, so I proceeded with the recording and finished the album." Years later, Coolio would apologize for being against the parody, claiming that if Michael Jackson gave his okay for a few of his hit songs to be parodied, then he shouldn't have made a big stink about it. James Blunt gave his permission to Weird Al to spoof his 2005 hit, You're Beautiful, with Weird Al's version being called You're Pitiful, but Blunt's label Atlantic Records would step in, being concerned that the parody would hurt their artist's image. Weird Al would still record a parody and release it online for free, and issued a statement to NPR saying, "I have a long-standing history of respecting artists' wishes, so if James Blunt himself were objecting, I wouldn't even offer my parody for free on my website. But since it's a bunch of suits who are actually going against their own artist wishes, I have absolutely no problem with it." Weird Al wanted to do a spoof of Lady Gaga's hit song Born This Way called Perform This Way. This one, much like James Blunt, saw Weird Al get blocked by the artist's management, despite the fact that he sent the song over for them to listen to. It turns out her management never even told her about the parody, and just flat out rejected it. It wasn't until Weird Al announced that the song wouldn't make his 14th studio album that Lady Gaga got wind of it and gave her blessing for the spoof to go ahead, with all the proceeds going to charity. That does it for today's video, guys. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like button and subscribe. We'll see you again in Rock and Roll Stories. Take care.